Hello, good afternoon, you guys. Good afternoon. I am eating my lunch, you guys, because my lunch came. I really had expected to come on earlier, but I didn't know that it was going to take so long for the press conference to start with Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She is the one who was unalived, and now they have named the unaliving suspect as the singer David. Um, so we are going to be talking about that. That's going to be our last thing we are going to talk about in the live. But I wanted to talk about a couple of other things with you guys before I go on to talk about that because it is a lot to unpack with that press conference. And while I'm looking at different things, different people reporting on social media, I already see how stuff is set up. I think some people are put out here on purpose. Hey, Michelle, how you doing, boo? I think some people are put out like to be distractors on purpose. Like it's crazy. Hey, Tez. Hey, boo. I'm gonna talk about the. Did you watch? Did you get a chance to watch the Celeste Rivas Hernandez? I mean, yeah. Did I say it right? Or did I say the order of her name right? Rivas Hernandez. Press conference. I'm going to be talking about that. That's the last. It's two quick things I want to talk about that's kind of like a little funny before I talk about that. And then I want to go on to talk about that case and what's going on with that in the press conference. So, yes, yes. And girl, I already see like certain content creators like I don't know if they purposefully are being a distraction or just ignorantly being a distraction. I don't know which one it is. I really don't. But they jump into the middle of something that they have not even like really followed the details of. This has been unfolded. Web sleuths and true crime communities have been looking into so many of these details. That April the 23rd date is something that the true crime community already knew was a main thing, right? And so some of these people, they just when they wait until something is announced and then they jump in and then they start throwing and flooding all this shit in that's already been sifted through to try to. And to me, I feel like they do it to try to muddy up and muck up the situation. And you want to know what? I was going to talk about two other things, but I'm going to go right into talking about that because, like I said, it's a lot to unpack with this situation. Um, so for those who don't know who David is, he's a singer. His real name is David Anthony Burke, and he made a name for himself because he first started out making music on Fortnite. He because just like on YouTube, like when people are playing music on YouTube and how their channel will get struck or whatever, the same thing was happening when he was attempting to do like his gaming. And so he started to create music for himself in order to play, and then it caught on and it got him it amassed him this fame right from it, right? And so he was using a simple iPhone, using a simple band, I think it was Band Labs he was using in order to record these songs. And like I said, he became a hit on Fortnite. For those people who don't have kids that are gamers, like all of these games now, they are so advanced. These kids be going to concerts on these games, all kinds of things. Like Travis Scott had a concert on there, and they rush into these rooms now rather than pay for the actual game. You're paying for all of the add-ons to the game, and honestly, they make more money that way, right? So this is how this singer David rose to fame, right? From starting off like this, just creating music on Fortnite. And then it caught on. He got into some Discord groups and chats. He became famous there. And from there, he took off. And that's where he first began. And then eventually, he ended up getting a deal under Dark Room, which is under Interscope, right? That was in 2022. And so his first hit song was this song called Romantic Homicide, right? The boy has really, really dark music. right? And the first song he had, or that I know of, at least I know my daughter was telling me about, was called Romantic Homicide. And in the book, the song Romantic Homicide, there are lyrics that say, "In the back of my mind, you died. I didn't even care. In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it." This is part of the Romantic Homicide song. They also found, after they found Celeste's body, a song that he wrote to Celeste, that wasn't, I don't think it was published, or I don't even know if he had made it yet. I don't know if he had just like wrote out the lyrics to it or not. But one of the lyrics in the song says, "I want to make Cupid suicide." So this boy has like really dark lyrics. And it goes along with, I made a post, right? And the post that I made was talking about these nihilist groups, right, that exist on places like Discord and across social media. A nihilist, right? So a nihilist is someone who doesn't find much pleasure in life. They don't see any meaning, any purpose in life. They don't think life has any real intrinsic value, right? And so you have these groups that are emerging on these social media platforms where children are gaming, and they get all of this uh popularity on the platform, right? And so it was speculated that David was a part of one of these groups. And the question was he a part of this particular group that was called the 764 group, right? And the 764 group has been listed as an extremist group by the DOJ. Okay. It was founded by a Texas teen. His name was Bradley Cadenhead, right? And Bradley was, the reason why it's called 764 is because that was the beginning of his zip code in Texas, right? So he lived in Texas, in Stevensville, and the beginning of his zip code was 764. And so the name of this group grew from that beginning part of his zip code. And he was a kid that was bullied in school, made fun of, wasn't very popular. And he gets onto these online chat groups at the age of 15 years old, and he gains this popularity, right? And now he's popular all over the place. And so he decides, because he got inspiration from some other group chats that he saw, that he was going to create a group, a network of people. And they named this, that's why it's called the Nihilist Extremist Group, right? Because their goal is to target teenagers. And I'm saying all of this for a reason, because it is believed that David was a part of these groups in the Discord, right? And Discord is where he meets Celeste. And now they have confirmed through some of the reporting that what Web Sleuths and Reddit had been reporting, that David met Celeste in 2022 in the Discord, that actually did occur. Web Sleuths have been saying this, and Reddit has been posting this since they found her body. They have been, they started looking into this, but now it's been reported and confirmed that this was the place that they met, right? And so this boy Bradley Cadenhead, like I said, he was the founder of the 764 extremist group. It wasn't an extremist group at the time. At first, it was just this little helpless group that was started by this little 15-year-old boy who was bullied in school. And then he amassed this popularity, and then he starts to create these groups and chats where they are doing things to target kids, right? To lure kids and to target kids into situations. And so they were targeting them by using CSAM. So I use this term often on this channel. The CSAM is child sexual abuse material, right? And it really doesn't matter whether it's one child taking it from a child to another child, because it's still the same kind of material, right? That's floating on the internet. But what they would do is like get these kids within these chat groups to become comfortable with them, to send them explicit things or tell them secret things about themselves or things that they don't want people to know, or and just like I said, just to become comfortable with them. And then they would use these things in order to force these kids into some type of self-harm situation, right? By coercion. These are my words. These are the words of the indictments that came down on these people in these networks, right? They coerced them into self-harm. So they would use certain things to blackmail them. They would coerce them into self-harm. And then they would not just stop there, but they wanted them to publicly demonstrate the self-harm for people to see, right? And so it's suspected that David was either a part of the 764 group. This is what some of the people in Reddit were finding out, and some of the other websites across the true crime community. Or he was a part of a similar group, right? One or the other, they're not sure. Well, Bradley Cadenhead, he is in jail. Okay. He is in jail. He is currently about 19 to 20 years old. He was arrested and found guilty at 17 years old. Now, remember I told you he founded this group at 15, right? He was arrested and convicted at the age of 17 for starting this network that did this. And he was sentenced to 80 years in prison because there have been suicides, children self-harm, major mental health decline in kids, all of these things from all of this shit going on the internet, right? And so right now he is in jail serving an 80-year sentence. Now, I want to say that for all of those people that think that some other things are too excessive, right? For all those who think that other shit is too excessive, this 17-year-old boy is serving an 80-year sentence for what happened over the internet, for the network that he created over the internet that caused people's children to kill themselves, right? So there was some speculation, like I said, that whether David was a part of this group or some similar group, right? And there were many videos that were wiped from the internet, but just like you always know, nothing is ever wiped from the internet. Nothing is ever wiped from the internet. But there was an attempt to wipe the internet of videos and things that had taken place between David and Celeste that were online, because David and Celeste's relationship wasn't being kept quiet. It was very public on Discord. What was going on between the two of them was happening in front of thousands, maybe a million or more people on Discord, right? And so we now get to the point where today David is charged with Celeste's murder, okay? And the reason I wanted to wait and I didn't come live last week when he first got arrested to talk about this is because I was waiting to see like what it was about, because you had so many people with hesitations about, is he going to really be indicted? Do they have what they need in order to move forward with indicting him? It was a lot of questions and speculations, and people will question it because of the way that the police went to go get him. There was a grand jury convened on this matter, but this decision was not made by the grand jury. It was made by the prosecutor's office. The arrest was made by the police, and then the prosecutor's office is the one who brought the charges, right? But a lot of people were speculating, like, does this mean that they don't have enough? Does this mean that they only went in to go arrest him because they were worried about him being a flight risk? All of these different questions were rising up. And there were some statements that were made by his attorney, basically saying he is not the one who killed Celeste, right? And when these statements were made by his attorneys, and they were so adamant about this, it made me think back to these connections that the web sleuths and Reddit was stating that he had to this 764 network, right? Extremist group. And it made me wonder, because I was wondering this from before as this part of the possibility. Did he have Celeste do some self-harm to herself, and then he do the necessary things to dispose of the body? Right? That was always something that I questioned, right? Well, I think in the press conference today, and that's why I'm glad I waited until they had the press conference to come talk to you guys, because I think in the press conference today, they answered my question. According to the press conference, or at least what I'm taking from the press conference, that is not, more than likely, that is not how the murder took place. According to what they discussed at the press conference, he actually murdered her. He's the one who did it. And for those people who are saying, oh, they didn't tell us nothing, it seems like they don't have nothing, they don't got stuff together, they aren't going to tell you everything. They aren't going to give everything to the public. But there are certain things that were said during that press conference that let me know that they know for a fact he actually murdered her. And okay, so Michelle, that part yet, they haven't said anything in relation to a baby. Nothing like that. But this is what they said. He is being charged with first-degree murder with a special circumstance. And the special circumstance is, wait a minute, let me make sure I got my notes, because I was writing my notes while they were saying it. Lying in wait. That's what they called it. Lying in wait. I guess that's another way for people to say premeditated. But there is something more. It's something more than just premeditation with that. When I went to go look it up, it's premeditation, but it is also, it is a way, the way that they described it when I went to go look it up, they were basically saying that he lured her to the place, April 23rd. They got a date. On April 23rd, he lured her to where he was, at his house. And he didn't just premeditate the murder, but it was the way in which he waited to attack her to commit the murder. So kind of like an animal stalks its prey. That's basically the way that it was described based off of how I saw it described when I looked it up. And so because this murder, and he's charged with this murder this way, he is absolutely looking at the possibility of life without parole, but he is also being considered for the death penalty because of this murder. So now the other charges also give us some more indication about this crime and what they have, what evidence they have to know that he's the perpetrator of the crime. So for all of the people who say nothing was said during that press conference, I guess you're just not interpreting the information, or don't know how to interpret the information. Because I think on this one was pretty easy for me. I know there are some times when some things happen and I might be a little bit confused, but this press conference was pretty easy for me to follow. and for me to understand what type of evidence they are saying that they have to know he is the murderer. So, the other charges that he has is that he committed a crime for financial gain. So I'm gonna read off the other three charges, and then I'm gonna go back and explain what I see, right? My interpretation, right? So he committed murder for financial gain. He murdered the witness of an open investigation. And the opening, so let me go back. So when it's saying that he committed a crime for financial gain, what they described in the press conference is that David killed Celeste in order for him to maintain his career. And the reason why he felt he was pressured to murder her in order to maintain his career is because either before or on April the 23rd, Celeste made it clear that she was going to somehow, either she was already talking with authorities or she was going to be talking about the authorities about the lewd and lascivious sexual acts that he had been doing with a minor, which was herself. And that made her the witness. So this is why he gets a charge of murdering a witness to an investigation. This is why he gets a charge of murder for financial gain. Because what the prosecutors are outlining in the story that they are telling is that this murder was of a special circumstance, that he lured her to the residence that day with the intentions to murder her and wait for the proper and right time to murder her, because she was going to be a witness in an investigation against him for his lewd and lascivious sexual acts that he committed with her. And because he did not want to deal with that consequence, he murdered her in order to maintain his financial situation, his financial position. Now, anybody who's saying that ain't nothing, I don't know what they talking about. That's a lot. That's a lot for them to be able to find. They confirmed in the press conference that they have both physical and forensic evidence to confirm this. That this is why the investigation took so long, because they wanted to make sure that they dotted every I and crossed every T. So to me, the press conference was very insightful. It gave us almost a map of at least how this murder went down the day of the murder. Now, what we don't know, what was not discussed, was the small details. All of the little details. All of how her body got to the vehicle. All about who transported her in the vehicle. All over the months, how this vehicle kept moving. All of that stuff we don't know yet. But that has nothing to do with what they know about the murder and what they told us about the murder. The police seem to be very clear. The prosecutor's office seems to be very clear after reviewing the evidence that they feel that he is the one who committed the murder. Now, like I said, we might not know about the dismemberment of the body. We might not know how the body made it to the vehicle, who was responsible for moving the vehicle around. That could be another person. That could be someone else. But as far as the murder is concerned, to me, it seems like that law enforcement and the prosecutor's office seem very confident and clear on who committed the actual murder. And so, to me, the press conference was very insightful. I'm glad I waited to watched the press conference before I came to talk to you guys about it, because I always want to make sure that I'm trying to be as detailed as I can when I'm talking about these things. They said that the lead prosecutor on this case is going to be Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman. She is going to be the one that is going to be the lead prosecutor on the case. And once the coroner's office releases the coroner report, they are saying that there will be another press conference held to answer questions about that. They also talked about the reason for the delay in the arrest had to do with the decomposition of the remains and how that made it difficult for the medical examiner to do their job, which was probably the thing that they were hoping for. The killer was hoping that that would be the case, right? Um, so right now that seems to be all of the evidence we have. So also during the press conference, they made a call for any people who may know anything additional related to this crime to come forward, and if there are any additional victims or possible victims to please come forward and contact the DA's office. So those are all of the things that took place at the press conference. And so that kind of changed the trajectory of my live and what I was going to talk about during my live. I still want to come and talk to you guys about these nihilist groups that are on the internet, because I think it's something important for us to know, something important for us to talk about as it pertains to the young people. You have so many children who are involved in gaming on the internet, and safety is very important. I know my daughter has been gaming since she was 5 years old. She's about to turn 17. From the time she started gaming at 5, I always taught her how to be safe on the internet, how to make sure that people can't get a hold of her IP address and things of that nature. Like we implemented so many different safety measures. Never give anybody your address. If they don't, let them offer you to send you food. I can get you food. I can pay for your V-Bucks. I can pay for all of your online needs. You don't need to get that from a stranger, right? But there are so many kids on the internet that they are victim to these things. And the way that these games are set up now, like I said, it makes it so easy for a predator. The predator does not have to stand outside your child's school anymore. They have so many more options in order to um to to profile your child in order for them to execute the mission, right? One other thing that I wanted to talk about when it came to Celeste's parents. So there were some, I was in some of the chat groups prior to the press conference. And so some of the people were asking questions because they were not sure about Celeste Rivas Hernandez's parents' legal immigration status, right? And so that was of a concern to individuals because they were wondering, would this impact them being there for today's hearing? I think they were there because I think that it was reported that the prosecutors were having a private meeting with her parents. But that's also something for us to look out for. It is something for us to look out for with this case on what was the parents' immigration status? How did that also make them vulnerable to what happened when they were reporting her missing? Right? Because no case is cookie cutter. There is always something extra, that an extra component that might make somebody more vulnerable, something that people might not consider. But I do believe that Celeste's mom was not born here in the United States. The question of her immigration status is something I think for people to look at to understand why, when she reported her missing, why maybe more aggressive measures were not taken when she was initially reported. Now, one of the reasons why they say some aggressive measures were not taken is because she was reported as a runaway, because she was running away, and she was running away to go to this boy's house, to be at this boy's house. A lot of people have mentioned that her mom knew she was there. There has some people have reported and said that the mom tried to do something to have them get her from there. But her immigration status may have a impact on what the mom thought she could do. And so that is something that I want us to consider and look at as we are watching this case unfold. Why wasn't more aggressive measures taken to get Celeste from David's home? Let's consider what was going on with her immigration status and how this could have had an impact on how aggressive she went to law enforcement to try to find out where her daughter was and try to get her daughter. So, that is all I have for you guys for today. Like I said, it was two other things I was gonna talk about, but because of the nature of the press conference and how it went, I will come back and talk to you guys about that later. I need to finish up my lunch so that I could get back to work. But I am going to be listening throughout the day. And if I have some time later on, I will come back and talk to you guys. Thank you all for coming in here and talk to me today. Tears, Michelle, I love you guys, and y'all have a good day.